Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Hello. We're settling in. I've invited people to send out in the chat. I'm trying to fix it so they can chat to everyone so that they can share questions and comments to everyone. Hopefully that's um, been fixed now. Thank you for letting me know. I'm Ruth. I'm the moderator for tonight. I've done just about all I'm going to do. Just checking the web chat. Send out to everyone so that everybody can get your comments or your questions. Send out a shout out if you'd like to tell us where you're joining us from. Tonight's presenter is Dan Wilkie. Dan, welcome.
Hello, Ruth. Nice to see you again, and nice to see everybody. I'm seeing some regular names, which is awesome. And just love seeing where everybody's from. Cool, cool, cool. Are we ready to go, Ruth?
I believe we're ready to go, Dan. Thanks.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Dan Wilkie, and this is, it's just so many. I think we're now in our sixth. Is this our sixth webinar this year? Maybe, or seventh. I don't know. We've been doing a lot, and I appreciate those people who have come back for more. It means I'm at least doing something right to help you in your math classrooms, your IB classrooms. Um, Even those people who are new, thank you for trying us out. You can always look back, and I'll show you where later, at the past webinars that we've done. But like I said, my name is Dan Wilkie, and I am an IB teacher in South Carolina. I live in Greenville, South Carolina, and I teach at Christ Church Episcopal School. And I've had the pleasure of doing all these webinars just to go through the different topics in IB math and going over the IA in IB math. And then next month is our last webinar. I know, don't be too sad about that. It is going to be on exam prep because, there's only 5 topics in the IB math courses. So this is the 5th topic that we're covering, which is calculus. So why don't we just get in and, talk a little bit about, what we're going to see tonight, and hopefully we'll get to play around with a couple activities toward the end. But let me share my screen. All right. So I have been teaching IB math for, I think this is now my 17th year. I've taught pretty much all levels. I'm most comfortable in the SL levels, having spent most of my time with math studies and IB math SL. I mean, I did teach IB HL math for a few years, but now since the new curriculum turned over, I teach analysis and approaches SL. I'm one of 3 IB math teachers at my school. I'm lucky enough that our school has smaller class sizes, well, at least for my IB classes. So it's very manageable, and like I said, I'm very lucky. But today in our webinar, we're going to be tackling topic 5, which is calculus. And here is the agenda for tonight. Well, we will be, like I said, going over and for those people who are coming back to me for now, I think this is the 7th webinar, now that I think about it. For the 7th time, very similar structure. We'll talk about what's new in the curriculum, and then we'll kind of talk about the exam from last year, what stood out to me, because I'm also a grader, an examiner for the Applications and Interpretations Paper 1. And then we'll also talk about the different calculus topics that showed up on the Math Exploration IA. I'm also a moderator for that. Very excited to start that next month. I can't believe I'm saying that already, but I'm going to start grading IAs next month. And then we'll do a few little demonstrations, the tips and tricks for the handheld. for both the Inspire and the 84. And then we'll show you what TI and I have been working on with respect to boosting up the IB teacher with some activities that we've been working on, that we've been either starting from scratch or enhancing what TI had already had in their wheelhouse. And then I would love to hear any suggestions. I have my notebook that I have every webinar that I like to write down suggestions from you. So at the end, or I will ask the question, what types of activities would you like to see created in the future? Because I basically, about twice a year, I do 4 new activities and then another 8 enhanced activities. So we're putting together about 24 newly or enhanced activities for you to use. I'll show you where to find them, how you can use them, and how you can change them if you want to. But I also like to hear from you. I like to hear your ideas. Because going forward, I think if we continue with the webinars next year, we are going to spend less time talking about, what the changes were in the IB curriculum, since now we are 2 years into this. And then we're going to focus more on what TI is doing, activity-wise, calculator-wise. So we're going to transition to that. Again, if they ask me to do more webinars next year, that's what we're going to focus our attention on, is the activities that are useful for you, and then how they can enhance your everyday class for that. But that's hopefully in the future. Hopefully we get to do some more of these. All right, so what did, yes, Lynn, you're one of the names that I recognize continuously. So, if you say so, I'm going to tell TI. Lynn told us we need to keep going with these, so we're going to do it. Thank you. All right, so what did we see new in the curriculum? Every webinar, I attach a document. It's a nice color-coded document that please look at if you are unfamiliar with it. It's part of the materials that also include this PowerPoint. It has a nice side-by-side comparison of what's in the new curriculum and where it was taken from. Did it come from Math Studies? Did it come from Math SL? Did it come from HL Math? Which higher level options did it come from? So it's a very nice color-coded document. And like I said, it's part of the material. So before I do the webinar, I send the things that I want attached to this webinar, so you have access to that. So please look at that. This is just, a quick little rundown of what I noticed, okay, is new into, first the Applications and Interpretations course. You'll notice from the Math SL course, now we're getting into the idea of limits, integration called anti-differentiation, and then, area between curve and the x-axis. So this is new stuff that used to be just in Math SL, but now the Applications and Interpretation class has to be familiar with it. And then brand new is the trapezoidal rule when you're approximating areas. Which I actually have an activity that I'm going to show you a little bit later that I made just for that purpose. And then for the HL course only, you can see that now we're getting into the special type of derivatives with respect to trig, e, logs, and then also we are now dealing with product rule, quotient rule, chain rule, and then also related rates, and then everything that goes with the second derivative, its tests. So a whole bunch of new stuff has been thrown in for the higher level version, okay, of the course. And then, of course, now we also have stuff going to the higher level that came from the higher level options. So, when we were in the old system and your class got to choose which higher level option, now pieces of those have now been sprinkled in to the Math HL as well. So again, these are just some little tidbits that I saw that are new to the course. And then for analysis and approaches, which I cannot spell, which that's why I'm a math teacher. So, but you'll notice that the analysis analysis and approaches class actually got some information, some topics from math studies. So it actually got, calling the derivative a gradient function, and using it as a rate of change, talking about increasing, decreasing in the graphical relationship. So stuff that was normally just in the studies course has now also been attached to the analysis and approaches. And then the higher level course has received L'Hopital, first order differential equations, Euler's method, Maclaurin series. So all that stuff has been added, and then new for HL is, partial fractions, that sort of thing. So these are some of the additions or changes that were made to calculus. And this is just a little bit of an overview. I tried to sum it up quickly on this sheet, but look at the color-coded PDF that is part of this webinar, and it will definitely kind of clarify things of what's new, where things were moved, where things were added. All right, so moving along, looking at what stood out to me when we were grading the papers. Now, I have a couple different perspectives when I am marking an exam. I already mentioned that I marked the exam for applications and interpretations for paper 1. But the cool thing is I have access to also paper 2 and what the graders are actually talking about when they're, because the process that we go through each spring is the students will take the exam and they have a frame of a mark scheme. Then we go through that mark scheme and then we add the student perspective, meaning students will look at questions maybe differently than the author of the exam thought they would. And so it's our job to kind of look at it from their perspective and write the different possible ways they can get the answer. So I helped out with the paper 1 applications and interpretations mark scheme, which was actually a very fun experience to kind of be a part of that. But I also, because some of the teachers overlapped with paper 2, I also got access to that. So I got to see some of the questions for paper 2 for applications and interpretations. And as the analysis and approaches teacher, I do get to see their exam as well. So I got some different perspectives with the different types of questions that I saw. So I just kind of gave a list of a few of the things that I saw that stood out. And I didn't know if people noticed this year, I know that thank you for, I love this. I love when people answer the questions on there as I go along. I'm sorry to interrupt what I was saying, but I love when everybody helps one another. That just makes me happy. So looking at what I saw that kind of stood out to me with respect to the calculus topics, one thing that was kind of cool, and and this was done on purpose with IB, is there are some questions that actually overlap from the standard level and the higher level versions of the exam. So what I noticed is that, for example, this applications and interpretations paper 2, the trapezoid rule and area under the curve, that particular question was actually used on both the SL and the HL exam. So there are several questions that overlap, which again, IB made a point to have this core curriculum that is shared by all the courses, so that the SL course, shares, a big portion of its course with the HL course. And so the same questions are now going to be used, or some of the same questions. And so it was really nice to see that kind of overlap when it came to, in this case, calculus, using the trapezoidal rule. But again, I saw a lot of derivative use, some integration use. I actually, for the AI paper 1 question that dealt with profit changes and integration, so many students got that incorrect last May when I was grading. I would honestly say that out of the 250 papers that I graded, that, a good solid 200 got it wrong. So when I'm thinking up of new activities to do, I really thought of that. So I put together that activity And that should be published, honestly, any day now, because I just went through the final version, double checked it with the TI person I'm working under, and it should be published any day now. So, but I'll give you a little sneak peek of it tonight. So a lot of kinematics stuff with the velocity, acceleration, and displacement. So that was showed up a lot at multiple levels. For the higher level courses, volume of revolution came into play. We know that that was taken out of any standard level with the new curriculum. So a lot of work with tangents. Not too many with normals, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be covered. But definitely saw more tangents than normals. And then finally, some just points of intersection, points of inflection, optimization, related rates, that sort of thing popped up. But I was really, because I was looking at, and if you don't have access to this at your school, I would highly recommend it. Um, you know, TI, we try to do a good job of giving you sample exam questions. So what I do is I look at exam questions and I say, oh, that's a good one. And I try to figure out another version of it kind of in my own way, but it still kind of gets you to the same result, same place. So we have actually a lot of sample questions for you to use in your classroom. And we also allow you to change those if you want. If you want to put different numbers in there, different situations, that's completely up to you. But we have a lot of questions, but if you want to see all of the exam style questions, if you don't have if you go to Follett and get, the subscription, so you can see all of the questions, I would highly recommend it to you, because what I did yesterday when I was putting together this PowerPoint, I was just looking at the different time zones. Uh, they have the time zone 1, time zone 2, and I was comparing the two types of questions. And it's so funny to see two completely different questions, but asking the same type of thing. So that was kind of a nice little side-by-side thing that I did. So even though, like I said, completely different questions, they're still taking derivatives. They're still finding the tangents, but in, different styles throughout the paper. So if you don't have access to all the exam questions and marked schemes, I would highly recommend getting that if at all possible. But those are the things that kind of just stood out to me on the exam last year. Now, with respect to the IAs, like I said, I start grading IAs in April. So what I noticed last year, last topic, the last webinar we did in February, we really focused our attention on the IA because most people do statistics, when they do their IA. But there are a few that kind of have that have some calculus stuff. And then I was just looking at, Cindy had made a comment. The applicant may is exam times on 2 questions. I did notice, Cindy, at times she had a question about, or made a comment that the time zone 2 question seemed a little trickier. That I noticed that, where I thought an easier calculus question, and I'm just picking on calculus because this is our topic. I saw an easier calculus question in time zone 1, and then a more challenging one in time zone 2. So I would actually like to know how IB goes about that process of how do they weigh them? Do they weigh them calculus question to calculus question, or do they weigh them examination to examination? So do they look at it as a whole, as that they have the same difficulty as a whole, or do they break it down by individual question? So, because I did notice that some questions on either time zone 1 or time zone 2 seemed easier than its counterpart. So I was really curious how they did that. And honestly, off the top of my head, I don't know if that is. Oh, sorry. If you want access to these, you have to purchase a subscription through Follett. And then you can get access to all old questions, even the old studies and Math SL HL questions. So yeah, so you just have to get a subscription through Follett. All right. So when it comes to the IA, um, the main things that I had seen, thank you, Jasmine, I appreciate that. Um, when it comes to the IA, I saw if calculus was involved, the main thing was, you know, derivatives and rates of change. So that was the number one, that if somebody were to incorporate calculus, it was using derivatives or rates of change in some sort. There were a few that unfortunately got a little too physicsy for me. And you got to remember to tell your students. And I don't have a lot of students, but one of them did want to do, where did these physics equations come from to get used? And so she had to use calculus for it. But I had to kind of bring her down a notch and kind of say, this is way too physicsy. We need to turn it around and make it more calculus based. Because again, this is a calculus paper, not a physics paper. So that was my only slight little complaint. Sometimes the students got a little too physicsy with their topic. But then the other two that came around in a lesser amount, there were some volume of revolution. Some students got a three-dimensional object and wanted to find the volume of it, so they incorporated some calculus in it and dug a little deeper with that. So I did see that a little bit. And then about the same amount was optimization and related rates. So when students are minimizing or maximizing, there was a little bit of optimization in there, and then related rates. Honestly, that was just a very small, just a handful or less that I saw using related rates. But I usually deal at the SL level, so I don't get to see maybe an HL level exploration that might get into more of the calculus-based stuff. But these are the only kind of things that I saw that stood out to me with respect to calculus on the IA. But I love to see it. Anything that, not that I don't love statistics and probability. I love seeing them branch out and dig into something else other than just collecting data and analyzing it and then talking about that math. For them to dig in further or to other areas of the curriculum just puts a smile on my face. It's kind of a relief when I get that type of paper. So it's unavoidable. I only have 7 students this year. One person is doing calculus, one person is doing trigonometry, one person is doing, they were doing some area of land masses and the coastal lines. So those 3 were kind of off in another direction, which was great. But then the other 4 all did statistics. So even though I try to get them to go away from it, it still comes up, and I don't dissuade them from it. If they want to do that and they can explore that math, I'm very happy with that. But to see these examples here with calculus, it does put a smile on my face. It really does. Okay, so what can we do on the calculator? All right, so first and foremost, please remember that if you are using the TI-Nspire, okay, there are certain aspects of the calculator that are going to be turned off. And the unfortunate thing for calculus is the CAS portion. If you have a CAS calculator, which in this picture right here would be the blue version, that functionality is turned off. Okay, so it kind of turns your Nspire into a non-CAS or a similar 84 level calculator. Even though there's still a lot it can do for you, and I use Nspires, and I still will always say it on the mountaintop that I love Nspires, and that's the one I'm going to use. There are restrictions. Okay, so you do have to turn off certain functions, before the exam. Put it in press to test mode, so that the students aren't getting an advantage when they're taking the exam. So, having said that, there are still some things that we can do on the calculator. So if we first look at the Nspire, so let's take a look at that. I'm gonna start a new document. All right, so just on a calculator page, there are a couple different ways that you can tackle calculus, of course, um, on the Inspire. First and foremost, I always take students through the menu because this is kind of obvious where we can go from here with number, algebra, calculus, probably all the way down to finance. Okay, that's all the stuff that's pretty obvious. But when we go to calculus, okay, you'll notice that we have a lot to choose from. Now, unfortunately, all this stuff here is not going to be available to them. I have the, like I said, I have the CAS version on right now. So if I turn the test to press on their calculators, there are going to be some things like this number one. They are not going to be able to just take the derivative of a function. They can only take the derivative at a point, just like they would in the non-CAS calculator or the 84. All right, so both of those calculators can do that. And then we can take a definite integral, but not an an indefinite integral. Okay, so there are going to be things that will be turned off on the calculator. We are not going to be able to find a limit. Okay, so even though we have these wonderful calculators, there's a difference between an IB class and an AP class. An AP class, you don't have to turn anything off. Okay, so when they give you that calculator portion of the exam, you can use your calculator, do whatever you want with it. They're expecting you to use that. With IB, it's a little different. They want everybody from around the world to be on the same playing field. So they have to restrict some of the things that you can do on your calculator. And that's why for those students or for those teachers who are using the Inspire, I talked about this a couple webinars ago. There is a new coding system that you can just type in when you are about to put on the press to test mode just for IB. And like I said, that's kind of a nice little feature. You just type in the that IB code, and you're done. You put it in press to test, and the person doesn't have to go through and restrict individual things. It's automatically done. You don't have to worry about it. You'll pass inspection if anybody comes in and looks at you, so you'll be good to go. But please notice that all these things might not be there. Okay. So just be aware of that. But you can take derivatives at a point, okay? Just like you can on the 84. You can, if they ask you to find, what is the slope of the tangent at a certain point, at a certain x value. That's where this kind of comes into play. And what I like about the Inspire, there's a nice little kind of derivative at a point. They ask you what is the variable, what is the value. You're going to take the first derivative. So it's a nice step-by-step thing that you fill in and find. So there's not a lot of guesswork there. Okay, but you can do that. So other than going through the menu and then calculus to find your different functionalities, one of my favorite buttons on the Inspire is right next to the number 9 button, which is what's called the math template button. So these are some of the most commonly used math templates on the Inspire. Okay, and you'll notice that since again I have the CAS version of this open, everything is available to me. If I turn off the CAS capabilities, which I can, then some of these are going to be locked. So I can't take like this one right here, the indefinite integral or the limit. Those will be locked to me. I can't find those two things when the CAS capabilities are turned off. But what I can do is I can find the derivative, at a point. Okay, so I can find this derivative at a point. I can find, the definite integral here. So if I click on that definite integral, now I just fill in the important features and I'm good to go. So again, indefinite can't find, but the definite integral I can. We can also use graphing capabilities to find some wonderful information. So we can just kind of type in, something simple, x squared. Now I can go to my menu to analyze graph, and down here I have some calculus stuff that I can use. with 5 through 8. Okay, you'll notice that 7 and 8 is area between either a curve and the x-axis or the area between two curves. So I can do that. So one thing, and I like to do this, the area between a curve and the x-axis, I can just select a point and it's going to, I'll just go right to here. So there's the area under that curve. Nice, quick, clean, looks good. So just another quick little thing that we can do with calculus to save time, finding the area under the curve. Or if I graph the second curve, I can find the area between the two curves, which is nice. Another thing I like is when we're using this analyze graph, when we're trying to find those definite integral points, we're going to have to find points of intersection. So we can just do the analyze graph intersection and find those points so we can do the definite integral. So little things that can help us out going through this process with that. Now, the good news is with respect to, and I'm going to pull this up really quick if I can find it, on the 84, we can do similar things, okay, that we could on the Nspire. So even if you are an 84 user or even an 83 user still, we can still get our, if we go to now the math capability, all right, you'll see down toward the bottom here, we get some derivatives, some integrals, but those are just like the derivative at a point and the finite, the definite integral as well. So that's just like we would on the Nspire. So the 84 does not have the capability of finding an indefinite integral or just a derivative of a function, okay? But again, we can use these two things to help us find that derivative and integral, okay? Just like the Nspire. And then also, if we go to, if we were going to graph and do the same thing we would with the graphing capabilities, we still have the derivative and the integral that we can take on the graph of the 84. So there are those calculus options that we can use. All right, so hopefully that you've used them before and this isn't hopefully brand new news to you. Like I said, I'm just hoping that we've seen that or used that in our calculus studies. So I know that when I am, the way I teach my class is our IB class, we take pre-calculus before we get to the class, and then when we enter the class, it's really just focusing on what we didn't cover in pre-calculus. So we hit the calculus immediately at the start of the year, then we do prob and stats, and then we finish the year just kind of reviewing the other skills that we have. So right now we are kind of just about, we've already finished topic 1 review, so we're kind of in the middle of topic 2 review with functions. So we're just kind of motoring along with our review, trying to get them used to the way IB asks the questions. And this is the time of the year where I'm really starting to sprinkle in my technology stuff. So when I first introduced calculus way back in the first quarter of the year, I was really focused on, how do we do it? What is the meaning behind taking derivatives, integrals, that sort of thing? And then what IB is expecting from them. So now that we are kind of in our review stage, I get the chance to kind of really dig deep into, okay, so here's how you can save a few minutes if you go to this aspect on the calculator. Because if they are in the AI course, they're using the calculator the whole time. And if they're in the AA courses, then they're going to have one of the papers. Actually, if they're in the higher level, 2 of the papers with the calculator. So the goal is to now, over the remaining, we got March and April really to kind of not only review the material, but also push in as much technology that will help them speed through the process. Because finally, and I praise the Lord that they're here, that they are understanding the way IB asks questions and how they should be responding. It took a long time. It took them half the year to get there, but they are finally at a decent place where they can, answer an IB question and be confident with it. Now my goal is to shorten the time that they're spending on those questions. And if it's a calculator type question, then I'm going to really focus, what can we do on the calculator to speed things up? So these are just a few little things with respect to calculus for both the Inspire and the 84 that hopefully can benefit us. Hopefully. All right. So now, where are we? Where is my... There it is. Okay. So what has TI been working on? So over the last 2 years, and I've mentioned this before for people who have come back to join me, is we've been trying to give you the opportunity to do activities that enhance the IB curriculum. So not only do you get to kind of review the basic skills that are needed, but then you can take it a step further and pursue it as IB would. How would they ask you this in an IB exam? How can we use it for an IA? That sort of thing. So looking at, and I'm going to show you the website in a second, but the newest activities that are currently on there, and again, I'm going to promote this in the coming days. A new batch is going to come up of 4 new activities and another 8 enhanced activities. So just look for the new and updated notation there. So right now, I did an activity on bounded areas. So basically, finding the area between a curve and the x-axis and the different types of, skills, either using rectangles, trapezoids, that sort of thing to find the area under the curve. So we're going to take a look at that one in a second. But then I also updated some older TI activities and kind of gave an IB spin on them. And then you'll notice in red, I have the derivative ones that are highlighted. We have derivatives in their graphs, which I honestly really love, because whenever I start to talk about graphical relationships between a function and its derivatives, I tried to model this activity on that and how they relate to one another. Then I also, for the higher level group, there's a Taylor polynomial activity that I worked on, and then investigating derivatives of just some common functions and how they relate to one another. So those were some ones that are currently up there. And then all of them, of course, include an exam style question. So for these, 12 activities, and for the 12 they're going to be coming up, they all have, an IB question with them. So you have 24, 48, 60 IB questions that you could be using to enhance your students' preparation for the exam. That's different than anything you would see on the subscription website where all those are. So these are different than what you'd see there. So I got a question: are the red ones HL or SL? So you can use the bounded areas, you can use for both, all right, because the trapezoidal rule was added to the SL level, so you can use that for both. Derivatives and their graphs you can use for both, okay. And then I think just going off of memory, the Taylor polynomials and the investigating derivatives, those are more for the higher level for that, okay. So kind of looking at that, let's go to the website and see, where is this? Of course, I can't get there because of this. Hello. All right, so I'm going to go to education.ti.com. And so here is our website. So we got the TI website here where you can there's a lot to go on here. You can go to products that you can purchase, not through TI, but through third parties. But this is what TI offers. Downloads that you can get. And then, of course, you can get to our website through the activities section or the resources section. They both contain this IB resources. All right, and so from our resources screen, all right, we have a little overview of what you'll see. We have the 2 courses, the AA and AI courses that you see here. And then we also have the webinars. So for those people who only got to be here today, and I said 1 or 2 things that you may find interesting, and you'd like to go back and listen to some others, and even fast forward through a few things if you needed to, you can go through the on-demand webinars. And so when you click on the on-demand webinars, and it's a little slow, so come on, you got this. Don't be slow on me. So I am trying to make it, oh, there it is. I was going to go to a little tangent if that didn't show up. All right, so what you will see here is that, okay, you can select the technology, you can select IB or anything else, but we're IB, so that what you would select. You can select the subject area that you need, but you'll notice we have tackling topic 4, topic 3, the IA, tackling topic 2, 1, and then the introduction. So those are all the webinars that we did this year, this school year. So if you haven't got a chance to check them out, check them out. We also have ones from last year that we did. So hopefully we get to continue to do some more. Okay. So now if I go back to my, hello, go back, there you go. So now I'm going to look at my activities. So these are free activities for you to do what you wish with them. I'm just going to click on analysis and approaches. All right. Now, I will say this. Some of you have occasionally asked me, do these go with more the SL? Do they go more with the HL? And where I started these activities was, excuse me, I started mainly, and this isn't for all of them, this is not 100%, but mainly I started with the core curriculum. So I tried to get topics that were covered in all 4 of the classes. So a lot of these activities deal with that. But there are a few, especially at the calculus level, that are geared mainly toward higher level. But we're adding new ones, all the time. So here's the list that you'll get. So if we select calculus, and then you of course have the Nspire or 84 selections. You don't have to select the technology if you don't want, but here are all the activities for calculus. So you'll notice we have 5 of the 84s, and you can see where 4 of those say new and updated. Okay, so either they are brand new that I created, or I took old TI activities and enhanced them with an IB flair to them. So one thing I've been charged with doing is making activities parallel to one another with either handheld that you use. So if you're an 84 user or if you're an Nspire user, you're getting the same activity, no matter which one. Now, things are, of course, are going to be slightly different, but I tried to show off, the same thing in each one. So the one that I was going to do, the graphing relationships, I really like that one. So what you'll see here when you click on the graphing relationships, an overview of what the activity is. And at the bottom of the screen, you will see a student activity, teacher notes for you, and the IB question. So all 3 of those in both a PDF and a doc, okay? Or you can just zip load and download all of those at once. Okay, so I think I already pulled up some of these. So the derivative graphs, okay? So if I were to pull up the graphing relationships. So what you will see here, you'll see that on the left, I have the actual activity that deals with the relationships of the derivatives and their graphs. And then on the right, you'll see the teacher notes that go with it. So yes, we have problem 1, and it kind of leads the students through, what's going on in the activity, and then a whole bunch of questions for them to answer and discuss. I'm really big when I create my activities or enhance them to get discussion going amongst the students. So you'll see a lot of open-ended questions for them to talk about. So this is all kind of going through what relationships will happen between, okay, a function and its derivatives. Okay, so some of the questions that you can see here, if we kind of just go through, is when you graph them, find the intervals when the function increases, find when it function decreases, and then, explain, state the kind of values the derivative should have over an interval where the function increases. So it's not only looking at a graph and finding these answers, but it also wants the students to kind of explain the idea behind it. Why would it what would make it increase? What would make it decrease? And not just say, oh, from x is greater than 2, it's increasing. So they're actually having to explain themselves and not just answer those questions. And then we can find minimums and maximums, all right, for that. And then what does that mean? What does it mean when it crosses over the x-axis and goes from negative to positive or positive to negative in the derivative? So all these things are being asked and discussed. And so again, you go at your own pace if you don't like some of the questions or if you want to reword them differently. That's why we give the doc version. So you can alter these if you like. And then on the right, we have the teacher notes. So it talks about what is the lesson, okay? And then what are the topic and subtopic groups that we're talking about. You'll notice that we're dealing with topic 5, section 2, increasing and decreasing functions. And then how I split it up in how does the AI course cover it? How does the AA course cover it? And then we got some vocabulary, some prep notes. And then as you go through this, you'll see these gray boxes of teacher tips on different things that might pop up through the process. And again, we give you the answers, what it should look like, what they should be discussing. Feel free to enhance the answers how you wish. Again, that's why we give you the doc version, so you can actually update them if you'd like. Okay. We give you keystrokes so you know where you're going on the handheld. All right. And so let's say that you like this, but you're like, hey, Dan, I don't use the Nspire. So again, you just go to the student activity on the 84, and what you will see as it pops up here is the 84 version, okay, of the same thing, the same questions, but now dedicated to the 84. And so all these same questions are here, but you'll notice that some of the keys are different because that's how we enter them in a little bit differently. So same questions and responses and discussions are being had, but now from the point of view from the 84. So that's what I tried to do with enhancing or creating these activities. So no matter what calculator you're using, you can now go, okay, I'm gonna take this and do what I want with it. And then when you're done with that, of course, the goal is for your students then to be able to answer the IB question, hopefully with, not too much difficulty. So this is the IB question I created with it. You're basically dealing with a cubic type of function here, where, you're going to be answering some min-max questions with it. So not too difficult, but hopefully understandable. And then what also comes with it is a mark scheme with each question that I give. So kind of written in the style of how IB grades. All right. So you have, honestly, I think we have a good 60 or more IB questions for you to use if you would like to. So that was one of the activities I was really happy about when I got finished, because it's something that I really enjoy doing with my calculus classes, is getting them to kind of see that relationship, just by looking at the graphs, because they can learn so much. You can kind of see this picture right here of the cubic, quadratic, and then the linear kind of all together on top of one another. And then the students get to kind of just look at that and then see all the relationships that they have, and then how does that relate to calculus? And it's something I really enjoy doing at the start of my calculus topics for that. Another activity that I really liked creating was this bounded area activity. So again, if you have, I have the two versions here. I have the student version, okay, on the right, and then the teacher notes version on the left. So again, the students get to go through this activity. They get to graph a function, which is just x squared plus 2. And then from there, students get to go and, if they're on the Nspire, they get to create, and I'm going to show you that real quick here. Here is this bounded areas. They get to go through and discuss the area under this curve. Okay, so we know on the calculator, we can just graph this in, and quickly find that area. But, students should also be made aware of how do we find the area, if we use left, end rectangles, or what if we use, right and rectangles? Or what if we use, the midpoint of the rectangle? Or what if we use trapezoids? So they get to go through each one of these and then discuss which one is better. Okay. Then they get to go back and and again, I'm big on discussion and having the students talk it out when they're doing these things. So that's what they're answering in these questions. I know on the Inspire, it says move to page 1.7. So they're going step by step, page by page, finding the areas, explaining how they're doing it. And then at the end, kind of talking, which is the best answer? Which is the closest answer? Which is the closest approximate? Is it an underestimate? Is it an overestimate? So there's just kind of breaking down the idea of the different ways we can find the area under a curve. And then ultimately that leads us to just integrating. So again, but the teacher notes, you'll notice again, we have, the objectives, vocab, what topics are being covered in the IB curriculum. Okay, here are your files that you're going to need for this. And again, we do this same thing, the 84 of the Inspire, you have the same identical activity. Now I will to say this one little thing, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret, that when I did the 84 activity here, the Inspire graphs just look so pretty that I actually used the Inspire graphs for the 84 activity, because this was not something I could easily do on the 84. So I kind of fudged it a little bit and said, okay, the students are going to look at this and answer their questions using these graphs. So I just thought the graphs looked so nice from the Inspire that I embedded them into the 84 activity. So in this 84 version, they're not, I mean, they could use the 84 to help them out, but, and you'll notice this is how it looked on the 84 right here at the top. But then I kind of included these rectangles here from the Inspire, just to kind of give a clearer picture, and the students can kind of do it by hand. So I did kind of tweak that one a little bit. But again, you have your teacher notes with teacher tips and side by side, what are we doing? What are the answers? What are some sample answers? Because again, we're looking for a lot of discussion from students throughout this process. But this was another one that I was really happy with that we put together. So if you get a chance to look at it, and if you get a chance to look at any of these, I would love to hear your feedback. If you liked it, yes, let me know. If you didn't like it, yes, let me know, but let me know why you didn't like it, because maybe we can just fix it and make it better. Or you can tell me, hey, this is what I did. I took this, because again, you could take the Word document and make it your own, and you can just let me know, hey, I took this document and this is what I tweaked about it. I would love to hear that information. Because again, I say this every time I do a webinar, we're in this together. We're trying to get our kids 4s, 5s, 6s, and 7s, hopefully 5s, 6s, and 7s. But hey, the better we can, hey, if we can get them the higher number, the better. And if we can help one another to do it, I say, let's do that. So please, if you have ideas, if you have tweaks, I would love to hear it. And one activity, just real quick, that should be published very, very soon is, and I'm going to pull this up real quick. We are phase 4. So these are all the activities that I've just currently worked on. And it's this one. It's called Profit Equations and Calculus. So last year, one of the toughest questions on the AI exam from, I think it was time zone 2, was a profit equation and calculus question. And so I said, I have to do an activity based off of that. So I just took that one question from the IB exam and I created an activity about it to kind of help students out, help teachers out, kind of get across what we're looking for if we're combining profits, revenues, and derivatives and integration. So I created this activity where the students get to go through, they talk about simple things like the domain, and they get to graph, but then they have to maximize things, or maximize profits, minimize costs, that sort of thing, which involves that calculus. So it's involving, like I said, both derivatives and integration. and then we do a little extension with respect to some more IB style things. So give that as soon. It's going to be published very soon. So again, that's what I take. I kind of having that inside track to when I grade the IB exams. I see where students struggle, and so that's my first place I go to when I want to create a new activity. So the question I want to leave with everyone here, is there a calculus activity that you would, love to see in the future? All right, so I see one person said about calculating the equation x squared minus 1, all raised to the 2/3 between -2 and 2. Okay. So if you have any ideas with respect to what you would like to see calculus-wise, I would love to hear from you. So anything that you can send to me, put it in the chat that you'd like to see. Yeah, so if you actually go, that was one of the activities, Michelle, that I just highlighted with that bounded area. Okay, so if you look at this bounded area activity, it does contain the trapezoidal rule with it. Okay, so that would be something good to look at. And if it's not something that you're like thinking that it's right for your class, just let me know. And I would love to enhance it, tweak it, whatever you would need. But anything else that people, could suggest, I would love to hear. So as we kind of close things out, I'm just looking at things. Well, that's not topics here. Can we solve? I find the median using Inspire for a given PDF. So as we kind of close this webinar out, projectile motion, I love that. We only have one more webinar this school year, and that is going to be some exam prep. So what we're basically going to be doing is, so we are going to be focusing our attention on exam style questions and how can the TI tech help us, okay? And so what we're going to be trying to do is just go over some questions, sample questions, and then how can the calculator be used to enhance things. So it's going to be very different than the first 7 that we've done because, we're not going to be going over, the different subject material. We're just going to be hitting exam style questions and then how can we use the calculator, either the 84 or the Inspire, to enhance that. So that's going to be our last one of the year. So I hope to see a lot of people there. So we have trapezoid area optimization. Optimization is one of my favorite topics in calculus. Voronoi. And I love that the combining of optimization and Voronoi diagrams. All right, so Ruth, as people are kind of giving their ideas, I will hand things back over to you to kind of finish things off.
Thanks, Dan. As Dan said, you are invited to share comments and questions in the chat. Just keep them coming. All right. Lots of information there, and only one more IB webinar for this round. Questions and answers and comments there in the chat. Keep them coming. Reminder, send out to everyone. If you just put attendees or the host, Dan doesn't get a chance to see them, so put them out to everyone. If you're into social media, there's information for you on that slide at TI Calculators, hashtag TI Learns. And one of tonight's attendees going to win your choice of handheld device, TI-84 Plus CE Python, TI-Nspire CX2, or TI-Nspire CX2 CAS. So tonight I used my random integer generator on my TI-Nspire software, and the winner is Etta Brewerton. Etta Brewerton. Congratulations, Etta. You'll be receiving an email in the next couple of days from a TIer that says, "Etta, which product would you like and where shall we send it?" So congratulations, thank you for being here, and thank you for that. Our next slide is about certificates of attendance. I'm going to share that link in the chat as well. If you need a If we'd like to have a certificate of attendance for tonight's webinar, just click on the link provided in the chat and you can generate that. Also, I believe that'll be coming to you in an email in the next few days, along with information about the recording and a link to the documents. As we're wrapping up tonight, I have a couple more slides I'll just to show. You still have the opportunity to add comments and questions in the chat. We had a request from one of our participants tonight working on a survey, a doctoral survey about rigor, and has asked if we can share a link to that survey in the chat. So if you're interested in participating in that survey and sending, supplying your answers, that's also going to be in the chat there. So hopefully that will be helpful to your colleague. All right.
Ruth, can I say a couple more things real quick?
Sure, you bet.
Okay, a couple things. For one, somebody suggested, are there cheat sheets for 84 use and Inspire? I will have those ready for you before the next webinar. So thank you for that. I will get that for both calculators. Also, somebody said next year, can we do, activities kind of only for both the 84 and the Inspire and different webinars? If they want us to do more webinars, that's exactly what I want to do. So we're just going to be focused on that. And I'm going to put up, if you have any more suggestions or questions for me, I just am putting up my email address. So send me an email, ask me some questions. People have done it in the past. And we will, work it out together. So thank you everybody for coming. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to keep the chat going for just a bit because we have some questions still coming in. You might want to scroll up or down in the chat to get links or other information. So we'll keep that going there for just a bit. Thanks again. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Ruth. Thanks, everybody. Hope to see you.